I gotta tell you, cave exploration is not for me.
I know it's awful, but
after seeing these type of videos, it makes me wonder why anyone would even try their luck in these caves, but I guess I get it. There's a thrill and adrenaline you get along with the fact that no other human has seen what you've seen, but really, what's the appeal?
This hole is literally the size of my foot.
I'm your host Andrew, and here are your top 10 scary cave stories that will make you feel claustrophobic. Number 10, the Mossdale Cavern disaster. In 1967, John Ogden and a group of 5 friends set out to explore the uncharted depths of England's Mossdale Caverns. The cave system was known to be treacherous with narrow passageways and the constant threat of flooding, but the group was experienced and well equipped, eager to uncover the secrets of the underground labyrinth. As they ventured deeper into the cave, the weather outside took a turn for the worse. A heavy rainstorm began to fall, and the creek outside of the mountain began to rise. The group was unaware of the danger as they climbed and crawled through the winding tunnels, but as the water continued to rise, it soon became clear that the entrance was buried under a lake, and the water was rushing through into the cave through every single pathway. Ogden and his group were caught in a narrow tunnel when they heard the rumble of rushing water behind them. Before they could know it, it quickly rose up to their necks, and they knew they had to act fast. Ahead, they saw a small crack in the rocks, and Ogden forced himself up here, pulling his head up to a tiny pocket of air at the top. Unfortunately, there was no other room for anyone else, and the water filled the tunnel, drowning his friends. Ogden was trapped in the narrow crevice with his head above the water, but with no way out. He was found days later, still stuck in the same area, but he too would suffer the same tragic fate as his fellow friends. Number 9, the Nutty Putty Cave incident. Nutty Putty Cave, located in Utah, is known for its narrow, slippery passageways, twists, turns, and squeezes. It is a hydrothermal cave with a total surveyed length and depth of 1,355 and 145 feet respectively. The cave has different parts named accordingly, such as the birth canal, the aorta crawl, the scout eater, and the maze. John Jones had a love for caving and had his brother Josh on a caving expedition at Nutty Putty Cave just a few days before Thanksgiving in 2009. Together with 8 other friends, they entered the cave at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. The group had explored the largest room in the cave, named the Big Slide, and soon John, Josh, and their 2 friends decided to take up a challenge they heard about, passing through the birth canal, which is a very narrow and challenging passageway that eventually opens up to a larger room. John went first, but as he wriggled forward, he didn't see any larger area. He continued to inch forward, but the narrow passageway did not come to an end, and the squeeze made a sharp downward turn. Unfortunately, it all went wrong 50 feet earlier. It is unclear whether John entered the birth canal or just another passageway. He'd wiggle into a fissure that went nearly straight down and was able to turn back as a result. The narrow crevice he was trapped in measured only 10 by 18 inches, and he was stuck in the tightest part of that opening. John's brother Josh, who was following him, was the first one to find him. Josh tried to pull him out, but only managed to inch him only up a little bit. As soon as he let John go, he slid back right into the crevice. John was stuck with one hand pinned underneath him and the other one forced backward. His ankles and feet were free, but were of little use as gravity just pushed them back down. For the next 28 hours, the rescue team worked tirelessly to try and free John, but all their efforts were in vain. John passed away in this cave, trapped in this narrow crevice. The cave has now been closed ever since, and his body still remains in the cave, as rescuing him just would potentially lead to more deaths. Number 8, the Plura Caves disaster. On a cold winter day in February 2014, a group of divers set out to explore Norway's Plura Cave. The pond leading to the cave had frozen over, so the divers had to cut a hole in the ice before diving in. The plan was to swim through the cave's pathways and come out on the other side, where there was an exit in the mountainside. Kai Kankanen was among the last divers to enter the cave. As Kai swam through the cave, he encountered a tragic scene. His friend and fellow diver Jari Hutarinen had become trapped in a narrow passageway and had drowned. His body was blocking the way forward, however. As a result, one of the divers, Yari Uzumaki, panicked and started breathing too quickly, poisoning himself with carbon dioxide. Kai tried to save him, but it was just too late. Jari also drowned, leaving Kai alone in the cave. With no other options, Kai turned back and swam through the freezing water to the pond, but when he emerged, he couldn't find the hole they made earlier. He had to smash through the ice, blocking his way to the surface, and after 11 hours of being underwater, Kai finally emerged. The other men in his group had made it to the other exit and survived, but the tragic events of that day would leave a lasting impact impact. It would take nearly 2 months for the bodies of Yar Hutarinen and Yar Uzumaki to be retrieved from the cave. Number 7. Mammoth Cave. Floyd Collins was a cave explorer who met a tragic and bizarre end. On January 30th, 1925, he was exploring Sand Cave in Kentucky, searching for an entrance to Mammoth Cave. Collins, a highly experienced spelunker, was alone and ill-prepared for the disaster when he accidentally knocked over his lamp and dislodged a rock onto his leg, which pinned him in this tight tunnel. His predicament quickly became a media sensation as journalists and gawkers flocked to the scene, creating a carnival-like atmosphere above ground while he was still down in this cave, which just sounds terrible. Fortunately, Collins could be reached through the cave and was provided with food and water, and he would even give interviews to journalists. However, tragedy struck on February 4th when the tunnel collapsed, leaving Collins unreachable. Despite efforts to rescue him, he was found dead on February 17th, with his body finally being retrieved 2 months later and buried on Crystal Cave grounds. But that was not the end of Collins' story. In 1927, Crystal Cave was sold to new owners who exhumed Collins' body, embalmed it, and placed it in a glass-top coffin on display for tourists. This gruesome attraction was heavily advertised and brought in crowds of visitors. The family of Collins tried for years to retrieve his body, but were not successful until 1989. Some say that his spirit still roams the caves as well. According to Mammoth Cave tour guide Colleen Olson, one person even felt someone grab her and pull her back when she was about to fall, and she thought it was her caving partner, but he was way too far away. The person then realized it couldn't be her partner and just said, "Thanks, Floyd." Number 6. The Tham Cave Rescue. On the 23rd of June 2018, a Thai soccer team of 12 boys aged 11 to 16 and their 25-year-old coach ventured into the Tham Nang Nong Cave in Chiang Rai province of Thailand after a football practice. Unfortunately, as they entered, heavy rainfall started to flood the cave, and the way the cave was designed made it impossible to escape as the water would just block off these ways, trapping them deep within. The team were not seen for 9 days, sparking a massive search and rescue operation for them. The cave system was incredibly complex with kilometers of tunnels that extended deep into the mountainside. The ongoing heavy rainfall caused flooding within the cave system, making navigation and access extremely difficult. The search and rescue operation was led by the Royal Thai Army, and on July 2nd, they finally found the group of missing boys and their coach. 2 British civilian professional cave divers were the first to find the boys beyond an area in the cave system known as Pattaya Beach. Up to 1,000 people from Army Special Operations Units, Navy SEALs, various other Thai rescue government organizations, and international responders, including Australia, assisted in the rescue effort. The evacuation of the group began on July 8th, with 4 children being rescued in each round, and on July 9th, another 4 children will be rescued, and on July 10th, the final 4. The rescue was not without its hazards, as on July 5th, a former Royal Thai Navy SEAL died while placing oxygen canisters in the cave, highlighting the dangers and complexity of this cave operation. In the hump of our list, we have the Peak Cavern cave system. On March 22nd, 1959, a 20-year-old British student studying philosophy at Balliol College named Oscar Hackett Neil Moss embarked on a caving adventure in the Peak Cavern cave system, and little did he know that this would be his last journey as well. Moss descended a narrow, unexplored shaft in the cave and soon found himself 1,000 feet away from the entrance, trapped and unable to move. Initial attempts to rescue him were futile as the rope broke several times, leaving Moss stranded underground. As he struggled to free himself, he lost consciousness as carbon dioxide from his own respiration built up in the base of the shaft. This made it impossible for him to assist in further rescue attempts made with a stronger rope. The rescue operation was a very challenging one as a result, with many experienced cavers answering the call to help. 18-year-old June Bailey, an experienced caver small enough to fit into the tunnel, spent 6 hours trying to assist Moss, but had to be driven back by the foul air. Caving veteran Bob Leakey also tried, but even couldn't get close to Moss. Despite these efforts, Moss never regained consciousness and was declared dead on the morning of Tuesday, 24th of March. It was later assumed that Moss became stuck after moving a boulder in part of the tunnel, which then trapped the ladder, preventing him from being pulled up by rescuers. The distance between the rungs of the ladder was too great for someone of his height to reach through the remaining gap. The tragic event had a profound impact on the caving community, and Moss's father requested that his son's body be left in place to avoid risk of further injury or loss of life to those attempting a retrieval. Number 4, the San Jose Mine Cave-in. The San Jose Mine Cave-in in Chile in 2010 was a harrowing and dramatic event that captured the attention of the world. On August 5, 2010, a cave-in occurred at the San Jose Copper and Gold Mine near Copiaco, Chile, trapping 33 workers 700 meters below the surface. Matters were further complicated on August 7 when another collapse cut access to ventilation shafts, leaving the workers stranded in this hot and humid condition with limited food and water. Rescuers topside began drilling listening holes in an attempt to discern the worker status. However, these efforts were hampered by outdated maps of the mine, making it difficult to locate the workers in the first place. Meanwhile, the trapped miners were in a dire situation. They were stuck in hot, humid air at a temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, which led some to develop fungal infections as well as respiratory and eye problems. They only had enough food to last them 2 days, so they took one meal every other day, which consisted of 2 spoonfuls of tuna, a half a glass of milk, and half a cookie. And fortunately, they're able to obtain water from radiators. It wasn't until August 22 that rescue workers up above finally detected tapping on one of their probes. When they pulled it up, there was a note indicating that everyone was alive. From this point forward, it was possible to send the men food, water, and supplies through the borehole. Additionally, movies and music were sent down, and a cable allowed the trap workers to directly communicate with those above, including their families. The 33 men developed a routine over the subsequent days, and they formed 3 teams which worked, played, or slept in 8-hour intervals. Work involved helping the rescuers in any way they could, as well as checking on the well-being of the other miners. Play entailed watching movies or playing cards, dominoes, or dice games, and the men also exercised by simply running up and down the tunnels. Then finally on October 13, 2010, the first trapped miner was rescued, followed by the rest over the course of the day. All 33 miners had survived a total of 69 days underground. Number 3, the Pannikin Plain System. Deep below the barren Australian outback lies one of the largest and most mysterious cave systems on the earth. This is where a team of explorers once miraculously survived after being trapped for 27 hours by an avalanche. Expert cave diver Andrew White led a 15-person expedition to the Pannikin Plain System. Only accessible by experienced scuba divers, White brought an underwater camera crew to accompany the party with the intention of selling the spectacular footage to recoup some of their costs. But when a wild storm swept across the plain on the last day of their month-long journey, bringing torrential rain and cyclonic winds, the entrance to the cave collapsed and the film crew captured an incredible tale of survival. White and his team, comprising of world-class cave divers, scientists, and technicians, as they entered, a massive storage raged on the surface, which would eventually cause water to flood into this cave. As a result, the middle section collapsed and trapped all 15 divers, including White, underground. They knew that this was a very bad situation and were worried that the cave would collapse more, and this is when Andrew White decided to take the risk and swim towards the rushing water. In this, he managed to find a way out, and for the next 27 hours, he and others worked to send in line and send all of his team out, which they all survived from. Number 2, the Bushman's Hole Tragedy. In January 2005, Dave Shaw was on a mission to retrieve the body of Dion Dreyer, who had been lost for an unfortunate 10 years in the depths of Bushman's Hole in South Africa. Despite the daunting task at hand and the decade that had passed, Dave was determined to bring Dion's remains finally back to his family for final closure and peace. As a seasoned cave diver, Dave set out on his journey with the necessary equipment and training. He meticulously planned his descent, mapping out the cave system and studying the currents and conditions. As he descended deeper and deeper into the cave, his heart raced with anticipation and a sense of purpose. After hours of searching, Dave finally spotted the remains of Dion lying 270 meters into the cave. With a heavy heart, he approached the body and carefully cut Dion loose, and he started to ring a line on his body to bring him back up. As he was finishing, he noticed it was time to go up and started to ascend. But something was very wrong. Usually cave divers' lights are connected by wires to heavy battery canister, which is worn on the waist. Normally Shaw had the wire behind his back, but on this occasion he was unable to do so, and the lines from the body bag became tangled with the lights. This is when he began to panic, heavy breathing, and eventually passed away as a result. And rest in peace to this hero. Although he didn't personally bring up the body, he managed to cut Dion loose, which allowed other rescuers to recover the body and finally give closure to Dion's family. family. Number 1, the Sago mine disaster. On January 2nd, 2006, the workers at Sago mine in West Virginia were returning to work after the New Year holiday. But it was a day that would change their lives forever. At around 6:30 a.m., a sudden explosion occurred in the mine and caused a cave-in that trapped 13 miners inside. Those who were not trapped attempted to rescue their colleagues, but were unable to due to the high levels of carbon monoxide in the air. The trapped miners had emergency oxygen packs, but unfortunately, not all of them functioned. The miners were trapped as rescuers tried to reach them, but with no success. They could only wait and pray for rescue. The rescue operation attracted media attention, and after 40 hours, the miners were found. Unfortunately, only one miner, Randall McCloy, survived, but he was in critical condition and would not regain consciousness for days. In the hospital, they said the carbon monoxide poisoning ate away at his brain. The cause of the explosion is still a subject of debate, with some blaming it on a lightning strike that ignited methane in the mine, while others attribute it to the friction between rocks and metal supports, or even sparks from equipment. The mine was reopened a few months later, but was eventually sealed by the International Coal Group as a result. Well, these are the top 10 scary cave stories that will make you feel claustrophobic. What did you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.